Hi. Normally, I'm doing reviews. I'm going to take a departure from that and talk about a repair to something that I previously reviewed as super high quality. Yeah, the bloom is off the rose a little bit as far as longevity and repairability. So if you have a Nextbase Dashcam, in this case it's 622 GW, my impression unscientifically is that they've got problems with the batteries. I started having battery related problems about 9 months after using the unit, and a little bit over a year later, I contacted support and they weren't much help. And here I am 2 years later, I finally decided to repair it myself. I was driving my son to work about a week ago on some icy road. The car blew past us, our truck actually at full speed, spun out in front of us, 360s, and I was probably only a few seconds away from a head on collision. And I said, "Oh, okay, well, cool." Not cool, but thankfully, at least I've got my dash cam. I can review that recording later and um, use it if necessary, right? And certainly a few seconds later, I might have needed it for other reasons. But because my dash cam is not keeping time, the recordings just keep overriding themselves. So it defaults to, if I recall, January something 2020, and it just keeps overriding, overriding, overriding. So there was no way for me to get to that video. So I said, okay, enough is enough. I need to figure out how to replace the battery. Um, I reached out to Nextbase tech support, and although they were responsive, they were not super helpful. They spent most of their time trying to help me tell them when I purchased it to determine if it was under warranty or not. And as soon as they determined it was under warranty, they said basically, too bad, throw it away. We'll give you 10% off a new one. And for such a premium unit, I knew it was out of warranty, but I didn't expect them to not have any sort of repair program, right? I can't send it back to them and get a new battery for $50 like you can with a phone. Um, so it was on my own to try to figure it out, and I'm like, yeah, it's already dead. I might as well try it. So here's my journey. The first step was to find a compatible battery, and I'll show you what I ended up with. And As always with these types of repairs, you got to be careful, right? There's a risk of further damaging the device, which I did a little bit, but it's still functional. And of course, with these lithium batteries, they could explode and all sorts of fun stuff. I rated this as a difficulty to repair as a medium because there's some very small parts. I've got very big hands. Um, Everything's a tight fit. You do have to do soldering. There isn't just something you can disconnect and connect, so it wasn't designed to have any repairing done. The weirdly enough, the thing that gave me the most frustration is there's a really strong internal magnet, which if I put a screw on the end of a screwdriver and put it towards the unit, would just suck the screw right off the screwdriver, and then I'd have to hunt around and try to find a black screw in a black case. Anyway, so here's what I did, and as I said, it mostly worked. So I'm okay with the results. First thing you have to do, there are 4 screws on the outside of the case, is pull those off. Then if you've got a case cracker, credit card, in my case I just used a very fine flat screwdriver to pry open the case. Where those screws are, there's little connection tabs, so you just got to kind of force them open. So then you separate the back cover, which is a screen, from the case, and that exposes the motherboard. There are 5 screws on the motherboard, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that you have to disconnect. I disconnected the antenna here just so it give me more room on the case. And one mistake I made was disconnecting this ribbon cable. I don't think you need to. Um, in my case, so to me this looks like a connector that you flip open, and then you can pull out the ribbon cable, and then when you need to put it back in, you slide in the ribbon cable and flip it closed. When I flipped it open, I actually pulled that entire connector out, that whole black piece. And I was not able for the life of me to get everything back in and get it secured. So I believe that is feeding the battery from the windshield suction mount, as well as the telemetry data from the GPS. And so none of that is working for me, but the device is still recording perfectly. If I ever get around to it, I'll try it again. But I spent 40 minutes trying to get that little sucker back in, and I couldn't. Anyway, so you pull out those those 5 screws on the inside of the case. Now the motherboard can be pried out. So again, I take my flat screwdriver and I pry it around these cracks just to get it out of the unit. And that frees up the battery. So the battery is under this protective plastic case here. But you can see that case is very swollen because the battery has become damaged and is swollen. So all I did is snip the 3 little wires, the red, white, and black wires here. This is what the old battery looks like. I put in a plastic bag just for safekeeping. So the battery itself says that it's a 3.7 volt, 370 milliamps. Nextbase said to get a 320 milliamp battery. I don't know if they don't make 370s anymore or they gave me the wrong information, whatever. So I went onto eBay and I Googled 3.7 volt, 320 milliamp battery that has 3 wires. I looked at the pictures till I found one that had 3 wires. So $10 later, I get this little guy. So he's a 320 milliamp battery. And it has these 3 wires on it, so black, red, yellow instead of white. Hopefully that's close enough. I don't know what the wires signify, but that's what I went with. So I soldered the wires together, and then I just put a quick piece of tape on, electrical tape, to keep them from shorting. And then I reassembled everything. Again, the biggest problem I had, and I'll just repeat it briefly here, was this cable, right? So no matter what, I could not get that cable secured with this bracket back on it. So it's not making contact, so I'm not receiving telemetry from the GPS. Overall, honestly, it doesn't really matter. I'm getting recordings. The recordings now have the proper date and time on them, which they weren't before. I've been running it for a week. It shuts off after 5 minutes like it's supposed to. So everything seems to be working hunky-dory. If these batteries only last for a year, for example, then the next time I replace the battery, I'll try again to get that ribbon cable on to get my telemetry back. But it doesn't really matter. So because it doesn't have a GPS signal, I'm not getting miles per hour. I'm not getting the location tracked because it doesn't know how fast I'm going. It never kicks in the screensaver, but it records front camera, rear camera, everything it's supposed to. So I'm satisfied enough with the repair that I'm not going to go back in there and try to play with it again. So that's it. It wasn't difficult that much, right? It's just that, if you don't know how to do soldering, you need to figure that out and get a soldering iron or a friend that knows how to do it. The wires are too thin for just twisting and hoping for the best, right? You're not going to get a good connection that way. In the end, I had to start using the USB charger port on the top instead of the one on the base. So what? Everything else works great. That's all she wrote. So that was my journey to repair that. Previously, I gave this 5 stars based on their inability or unwillingness or whatever restrictions they have for being able to repair these in the US. I would have knocked that down to 3 stars, but it's still fantastic optics, smallest camera I've seen, super strong suction mount. I mean, I like everything else. They obviously didn't think through the battery part, that they're asking you to throw away a unit that's, I don't remember at the time, $400, $500, $600 with the extra reverse camera, um, after a year and a half of using it. So there you go. That's all she wrote. Thanks. Enjoy.